nightmares in my head. I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. Anxiety filling up every space, no privacy.
Hey, you guys. Hey. Okay, so I don't have a whole lot of time this morning, but I wanted to get this started for you guys. I wanted to talk a little bit about the life of Gia Carangi. Okay, now this is not going to be my full video presentation, so know that ahead of time. I'm trying to get ready. I've got an appointment this morning, but I really want to get this ball rolling because Gia Carangi is someone that I have been into for, God, I don't know, probably over 25 years. Um, and there is a great interest in her story, and I too am interested in it for certain reasons. And if you are one of my subscribers, or if you have been here with me for a bit, then you kind of know throughout some of my other videos, bits and pieces of my own experiences in my life, and sort of why I discuss certain people, why I'm drawn to certain people's lives. And I like to examine and share that information. I like to put that awareness out there. So this isn't going to be the full presentation, but this is to let you guys know that it is in the works. Okay, I made a video. It's been actually maybe 3 or 4 years back now, when I very first started my channel, when I was still learning. Still learning what I could do, what I couldn't do, what was, and really it was just a picture montage. I absolutely adore the fashion of the era when I was a little girl. I was born in 1976. And so I was a little girl, and I grew up in the 80s, and then I became a teen in the 90s. So I'm 80s, 90s kid. And that is just one of my absolute favorite eras of fashion, music, all of that. And I really looked up to the models at the time. I became very self-aware and aware of a lot of things at a very, very young age. Not only just because of my personality, just my intuitive mind and what I was born with, but because of what I was born into. A lot of trauma and darkness, an alcoholic father who was very abusive, and the mother and her situation, and all that was going on in my home. And so, So anyway, I'm going to chit chat with you guys and get this kicked off about Gia, because I did post that video several years ago. It was just all the lovely photographs that I could find at the time that I just adored. Okay, I've always been somebody who I grew up loving fashion and the models of that time, and I loved fashion illustration, even though I can't draw I love to draw fashion and just that sort of thing. But I want to talk a little tiny bit about, I'm just going to kind of go over the surface of Gia's life and how I got drawn into her and why. And then let you guys know about my upcoming project, and let you know about a website that I ran upon that you may be interested in if you are a fan of Gia Carangi, her work, or you are deeply interested in her life story. There is a really great website that I happened to stumble across. This was last fall, about 5-6 months back. I did another deep dive into Gia's life. I've been doing this off and on for 25 years, read several books, all the articles I could find on the internet, just trying to understand her and her past and what her wounds were. And because it's a case where someone was so young. I have 2 children the age that she was when she died. My sons are 26 and 27. And when someone leaves this earth that young, to me, that's a baby. So I know that, people are interested in what on earth, would be inside a person. It's always tragic when they leave that early. So anyway, but I did do this deep dive, okay? Again, after not reading about her for many years. Well, first I put the picture video up. That was 3 or 4 years back. And it was just pictures. It wasn't me discussing her life. But I deeply wanted to and intended to, okay? I just put that up as a tribute to her. because she's always been somebody that I have been deeply into. Her story, I related to a lot of it. I loved the fashion of that era and just loved her energy as a model. Okay. But on the flip side of that, she was a deeply troubled young woman. And me now at 47 years of age, I feel like that is something I need to delve into and sort of examine and spread awareness on, because yes, there will be a lot of young people to come that fall into her story and what have you, what not. And so, yeah, I've always, that was my intention several years ago when I posted that first video, was to follow up behind it with more of a deeper discussion about her life. And I know some people will be looking for videos and come straight for the facts. They just want to know, when was she born? Who were her parents? What happened to her? And they'll come like that. And some people, will enjoy more of a deeper conversation about that. And I know sometimes those who've been on my channel for a while know I'm kind of random and abstract about the way I put out information, and I'm sorry about that. But that is just how it comes to my spirit. That is just, kind of how it has to be, because a lot of this process is cathartic for me. It is a release for me, building my channel. And, having grown up the way I did, I always knew that I was going to share some of those things. And, I've had a lot of work to do in my life and a lot of trauma to overcome. And I have a lot of experience with people like that, who have been deeply addicted and who are carrying very, very dark and traumatic issues. So I know sometimes my info comes out randomly, but I'm trying to get better for you guys. So when I posted that video of Gia 3 or 4 years back with all the beautiful photographs, just this beautiful, and a little bit of music, just a tribute to her, and put it out there for those who just want to enjoy that, I was going through a very traumatic time in my life. I was in a relationship at that time. My partner was very sick, very alcoholic. A lot of these things really hit home for me. Okay. He was very severe alcoholic and really nearing the end of his life. He had not been diagnosed with cancer yet at that time, but that would come. And it was a rough time. And he passed away last fall from cancer. But I was having to put a lot of my time and energy into caring for my partner. And also there were a lot of troubles between us, a lot of chaos and toxicity and pain and back and forth. And it was a very hurtful time. So I did not get to follow up with that Gia video as I had planned. So you see what's happening. When I first started my channel 3 or 4 years ago, and I really got going good and inspired and so many things, and got completely knocked off. I lost everything to my name. My partner passed away. My 13-year-old dog passed away. All these things happened at the same time. I lost my home, my car, and had a complete emotional breakdown. I had just been too strong for too long. And so I had to come back and live with my mother. And the last year and a half has been very difficult for me, recovering myself and processing all the grief and shock and trauma and loss. So I'm just trying to give you guys a little insight into what happened and why there were being some inconsistencies in my channel and why I had to back off for a while. And it's taken me so long to get back around to things. Okay. But, okay. With that being said, I do know that there is a lot of interest in Gia Carangi, and it's great to find that, just like myself. I do read the comments on the video of Gia that I have on my channel, and it's great. It is great to see people talking with each other, and I commonly see the same question or wonder between, people in the comment section, about why such a young person, or why a person as beautiful and as talented and as her was so self-destructive, wanted to destroy herself so badly, or what happened, what was deeper in there. And I know that is a big thing. It's a question for people, okay? And oftentimes it is not. And this is coming from somebody who's been around addiction since I was a very young child. In fact, some of the first memories I ever have in my mind around 2.5, 3 years old is the smell of alcohol. Okay, so it gets pretty deep and pretty dark for me. So this is coming from someone who has always been around addicts, who has known them, who has loved them, who has had hell with them, who has suffered with them and held their hand, who has at times resented the shit out of them and been hurt by them and walked on by them, who has had to hold them accountable and put them in their place, who has cried for them, heart bled for them, and who has at one point in my life actually became one myself. And that is a whole other story. Mine was not nearly as long and severe as the people around me, though. Siblings, family, people I grew up with, my partner. But I do have my own story with that as well. And so I know it from all perspectives. And, as far as Gia goes, oftentimes, yes, people who are carrying some kind of trauma or wound from their childhood often become addicted. It is just a given most of the time. Sad but true, to cope. And, unfortunately, Gia was so young. She was a baby, 26 years old, when she left this planet, when she passed away. It's like, whatever her trauma was, so many of us have been fortunate enough. We're still here on this earth. And by the grace of God, or somehow, whatever it is, our life plan or God's plan, I don't know. I don't make it up. I don't write the rules. But we're still here, and we were able to overcome a lot of our traumas or survive through them. But not poor Gia. Not Gia Marie Carangi, okay? Just a baby. And whatever it was that was inside of her, that deep, and you can, yes, to answer those questions, yes, which it's all public knowledge. Those who have read the book, there's a book called Thing of Beauty by Stephen Fried. I had that book 20 years ago. There are countless articles on the internet, and before we get off this video, I'm going to tell you about the website. I will also link it in the comments in the description box for you. Wonderful website that I have stumbled across, where this man has taken a lot of time and thought and energy to put things on there about Gia's life, a timeline, family members, really important testimonials, photographs from all eras, every magazine shoot, and he's got it so perfectly organized, so much information. It's a great site. So I will tell you guys in the end of the video, and I'll also put it in the description box for you, okay, if you're interested, and I know a lot of you will be. Anyway, I know I'm kind of out of order here, but I happened upon that last fall when I started to go back and do another deep dive into Gia and learn even more about her life that I didn't know. So it's always great to keep studying, and not just assume things, because I have questions too. As a person who grew up in trauma and abuse and, dysfunctional home and around addiction, carrying dark secrets myself, dysfunction within myself, pain, and all kinds of codependency and abandonment wounds. And when your parent is an addict, you get automatic abandonment wounds. You don't feel safe. You never know what's going to happen. And even if your parents weren't divorced, you can still have abandonment wounds. Oh, yes. Gia had a different type, but you get what I'm saying, okay? And I often mix and match the information because, I have this experience and insight, and that's just the way I put it out there a lot of times when I cover these cases, life stories, or people. Now, I will say the next project that I'm going to put out will definitely be more about her timeline. It'll be more photographs, and it'll be more straight to the point about Gia. Okay, so I just want to let y'all know that is in the works. I just wanted to get this one kicked off and just kind of get the topic started, the ball rolling, and give you guys a little bit of an update on, where I'm at with all that since I put that first video out a couple of 3 years back. But, as far as Gia goes, she did have all those wounds. She had a lot of deeper inner issues, and it just, we don't know if she was taken to therapy or counseling. We don't know, but it did eat her alive, okay? It burned through her life so quickly. And it is common knowledge, it is public knowledge that she did have mother issues because her mother left when she was a young girl, 8 or 9 years old, and left her with her father and brother, okay? And so Gia always carried that. And the relationship between she and her mother after that, and the mother remarried, it was always strained. You know, there was a lot going on inside of Gia because of that. It left her with a lot of different issues and feeling unloved and all these different types of things. And so I know exactly what that's like. I have the exact same kind of issues, and I know what it's like to grow up with both mother and father issues in a severe way, and what it causes you to do if you don't get therapy. If you haven't been told or shown young enough that we go to therapy, we reach out to someone, these patterns can affect you. I know you don't believe it now as a young person, but if you do not sort these issues out, they will continue growing. They will affect you if you keep running and ignoring them. They will affect your marriage, your relationships. Possibly you will become addicted to cope with. You might not think it's coming out in your life as an adult, but it will follow you, okay? And it will impact all that you do. And it's true. And even though I had a lot of therapy and I did a lot of work on myself, it still impacted my life greatly. A lot went on in my younger years that I had to struggle with. And so I don't know if Gia ever got any of that, okay, in her short, young life. You know, she got to be 17, 18, photographs. She started taking the photographs. She was working for her dad. And this kicked off for her like overnight. I mean, almost like it was written that way, almost like it was planned in the stars, you know. And Gia had this really short life, but it's almost like she didn't have time to do anything. She didn't have time to grow up and address her problems. She didn't have time to sit back and think, you know, to get to a mature enough age where she's like, damn, you know, I really need to take a look at this. Or, you know, I need to. She was young. She broke right into the modeling scene, and that was overwhelming. And then she had access to money and substances and friends and travel and just that lifestyle, you know, and that industry can be quite cruel. And they were in the end. They were. You know, it's almost like it just burned her up, okay? But I just wanted to jump on and say that, let you guys know. I am going to edit this, and I'm going to put a few lovely pictures of our girl Gia in there. And like I said, the next video will be more facts. Gia Marie Carangi, where she was born, more facts about her personally and her life, her parents, certain timelines, and things that I find interesting, okay? And before I go, I'm going to give you guys the website you can check out. It has lots of information about Gia. And I also want to mention her girlfriend, Rochelle, aka Alyssa Golden, aka Rochelle, before I leave the video. So y'all remind me of those two things, okay? Just kidding. But yes, these types of discussions are deeply, deeply important to me. If you've seen my other videos, then you know what I'm talking about. Getting to the heart of and the roots of what was going on in people and understanding them, because that helps us all, okay? It helps us all understand each other. It helps us understand ourselves, our partners, our family members in multiple different perspectives, okay? And there's a lot to look at and discuss about the life of Gia Marie Carangi, okay? For those of you, I'm sorry, that don't know who she was a model back in the late 70s up until around 82, 83. And she started to get sick. She was I believe, one of the first women to ever pass away from AIDS. And she caught the virus. She was an addict. And she was a very troubled young woman, but a very beautiful. Basically, they call her one of the world's first supermodels. Very beautiful, very intense. And I'm going to get into talking about that, what that look is. Okay. Someone in my comment section mentioned that she looked like she had a sadness that burned behind the eyes, or that a sadness that burned in her eyes. Very true. And you can often see that in children of trauma, or adult children of some type of trauma or wounding in the childhood. They seem to have almost a seriousness or a wisdom beyond their ears in their eyes. You can often see that. But anyway, I do want to get deeper off into, you know, what was going on with her. Yes, the mother issues. Yes, the deep abandonment wounds that, likely never got therapy or counsel or sorted through. And that would cause codependency and the need for love. I mean, extreme need for love, approval, and that would, the addictions and um, the things going on within her. But I have often wondered if, I don't want to say this to hurt it or offend anybody, so, don't come for me, but this is part of the examination, because these things have often happened and nobody knows it. And that person never told it. So it's not something to get offended about. It is just something to keep in mind and in heart that could have been a possibility with Gia Marie Carangi. Oh, and just to finish up that first part, I got sidetracked. She was the model and one of the world's first women to pass away from AIDS. And her short career, she was stunning, she was brilliant, beautiful, but very troubled. And she passed away at a very young age in 1986 from AIDS. Yes. So just to finish that up and moving back to this point, I have often wondered myself, as a person who grew up in trauma with a lot of pain and issues and darkness as a young person, and having to work through a lot of these things and being around addiction and knowing, what has happened to a large percent of them, I have often wondered if there was more to it than just the abandonment wounds of the parents divorcing and just the estrangement with she and her mother as a young girl, which that's enough. That is enough to fuck up your head. That is enough to give you lifelong issues, even in therapy. But I've often wondered, being left there, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I've never seen this in public record or books or discussed, or anyone has said it except one other person. There's one other person. If you will go to the Sloan Bella channel, sloanbella.com, she's one of my favorite teachers, astrologers, psychic medium, energy readings. Sloan Bella covered Gia Carangi. She read the energy of this, her. And if you're interested, go listen to Sloan's reading on Gia Carangi. And Sloan got into talking about the possibility that something else had happened to Gia in her girlhood. Okay. And I naturally wonder that about people anyone who I see that is really self-destructive and really addicted. I generally can see it on them. A lot of times it takes one to know one. And when I was growing up, it's like all the abused kids that had been traumatized, beaten, violated. We grew up in, homes like that. We all knew each other. We would all gravitate towards each other. It was like this unspoken thing. We didn't just know it or walk up and say, hey, I know what's going on at your house. But it was like we just had an energy that would come together and, be friends and help each other out and support or whatever. And so I often wondered that about Gia. Just as a person who has this insight and, a great deal of people who are severe addicts. Now, there are all kinds of exceptions. I'm not saying everybody who's an addict, but a great deal of people who are extreme, really self-destructive addicts, overboard addiction, have been violated as children in a very inappropriate way sexually a great deal of the time. Now, for some of them, it's other types of abuse and it wasn't like that. And for a lot of addicts, they grew up in perfectly fantastic homes. You just never know. But you get what I'm saying, okay? Now, I know that Gia encountered violence and sexual violence out in the streets as an addict. And it's the saddest, most tragic thing to think that while she was sick and in her last couple of years, she was also going out and, putting herself in danger like that to get what she needed. She was physically dependent, trying to stop. And it's heartbreaking to think that she was, what she got herself into in the streets, being attacked and all of that while being sick with HIV and all that going on. But I often wondered, okay, and then I'm going to wrap this up. And I often wondered if something more didn't happen to Gia when she was a little girl or in her teens, other than the extreme mother wound. I often wondered, had there not been some kind of violation upon Gia's body as a young girl, some kind of trauma. Maybe I'm not accusing anyone. I'm not saying anything about the father, the brother. Of course not. Of course not. But I'm just saying you never know. And Gia did not live long enough to, and oftentimes, or maybe someone outside the home, could have been, anything, anyone, a distant relative or anybody. I'm just saying there's possibilities. And a lot of times young girls at that age, and that is still a young girl, I'm going to tell you, when I was hurt up to that age and younger, there are so many things that I wouldn't tell nobody. There are so many things I carried and secrets I kept and shame that I kept. And a lot of times we are manipulated by predator types or manipulating types if they are related to us or older than us to keep their secrets. And we carry that shame and feel like if we out them or tell anyone that something terrible is going to happen to us or something terrible is going to happen to them, or it would just be so nobody would believe us. So I'm just saying it is a possibility and a great, great deal of the time. And imagine that on top of her mother wounds, her abandonment issues, and just the longing for her mother and the divorce. And imagine if that were the case, that she had also been violated by someone on top of that, or continually was being violated in some way, or I don't know. And I don't know that to be true. But again, go to Sloan Bella's channel, look up her reading on Gia Carangi. She gets off into her feelings about this. And I thought, I had already been thinking about that before I heard Sloan's reading. And I ran across Sloan's reading about Gia, several years back, okay? And I had already been wondering this about Gia for 20-something years because I know what happened to me. And, I know the look. I know when a lot of times when people are very self-destructive, or, I've seen it on my brothers and siblings. I've seen it on my partner. Something happened to him too, and I know it. For a fact, we discussed a lot of it. And he just never got the proper help early enough. He just wasn't able to free up a lot of that toxic shame he was carrying and wounding and weight and so much shit. But yeah, way before I ran across Sloan Bella's thing, I wondered this about Gia, if something deeper and even more traumatic had not happened to her as a young kid. And so, it is a possibility, and no one would have ever known it. She's gone. She was gone so quick and so young, and, didn't have time to get old enough where we get a little more mature and a little less afraid, and we start coming out with things that actually did happen that we were so afraid and manipulated and scared back then that we couldn't tell. So don't ever judge somebody like that. Well, why you wait 30 years to tell? See, a lot of people don't know. If you haven't been through childhood trauma or traumatic issues, then you just won't know. It's just one of those things, man. But people grow and they mature and they get brave. So anyway, before I wrap this up, before I go, let me get this website for you guys, okay? I went back and I did another deep dive on Gia, and I was just so happy to find this website. Okay. This person they're fantastic. They've done a lot of work on it. And I learned, it'll really take you, it's just a fantastic presentation and so many things that you might be interested in or want to know about Gia's life. And it's also perfectly organized. And I was just so happy to find it and did this great deep dive into her life again. And as you can see, I took a lot of notes. I mean, some of my, I'm trying to get better about taking a lot of time and getting things, but I'm going to give you guys, okay. It is called Gia Carangi Lived Here. Okay, so if you're interested, go to the website. I will link it in the description box for you, okay, so that you can just go straight to it. But yes, it is giacarangiLivedHere.org. Love, friendship, Alyssa Golden. Oh, that's her. That's the exact link to Alyssa's statements. There's a lot of stuff on this website. I highly recommend it. And I'm aware of Sandy Linter, yeah, of course, one of her other girlfriends that also runs a tribute group for her on Facebook and, still keeps Gia's memory alive. Of course, I'm aware of Sandy, but Alyssa Golden, aka Rochelle, okay? And little did I know, Alyssa also passed away from AIDS in 1994, 9 years after Gia. But Alyssa's sister, Steffi, has some testimony and statements that have been put on this website. Things that Steffi wants people to know about her sister, Alyssa, aka Rochelle, also Gia's girlfriend. Now, this is a video I intend to do in the future and get into this discussion. So again, this is not it, you guys. This is just a quick thing to address and just get the ball rolling and get the topic out there, give you guys something. But I will be doing a future presentation because there is some discrepancy there. People don't know. People have argued about this. Was Sandy Linter? Sandy Linter claims to be the main love of Gia's life and the main partner. And at the end, or whatever, okay, and then from Alyssa Golden / Rosell's perspective, which she passed away not long after Gia, but from the way her sister Steffi tells it, and just trust me, there's a lot of stuff on this website that you're going to want to see, you're going to want to read into. But eventually, I'm going to get into that discussion too. People want to know, I think people are interested in that. Who was the love of Gia's life? Which one was it? Or was it both? Or who was she closer to? So yeah, it gets into that on that website. All right, you guys. So I think that's about it for now. I've got to finish getting ready to go. But I have a lot, okay? I have a lot to get to in the future presentation for you guys. It's going to be great. We're going to delve all off into it. I'm going to put it together in a presentation that you will enjoy. So, and I hope you enjoy this one. I hope you get something out of it, or maybe a little food for thought, some information. And I appreciate you guys watching. Yeah, I will see you in the next one, okay?